today you're going to be receiving and hearing about the CBMC Leadership and Integrity Award. So let me tell you, first of all, the folks who have won the CBMC Leadership and Integrity Award in the past. And this is really a who's who of businessmen in our community. The first year we did it was 2011, the great Bud Richter, who's now up in heaven already. In 2012, his great friend, the great Louis Herwalt. And Barbara and I had the great privilege of spending a couple hours with Joanne yesterday, and she's not able to be here today. And then 2013, Bob Duncan. Now, if you just honored those three men right there, boy, what a history of Fresno. Richter, Herwalt, and Duncan. And then in 2014, the great Bob Myers, who's not able to be here with us today, but he sure sends his love to all of you. 2015, my great friend, Dr. Jimmy Aldridge, the first black city manager in the history of Fresno, one of the great athletes that ever come out of this area. And in 2016, Dr. Larry Pell. So stand up, Larry Pell. You were the recipient in 2016. In 2017, Sid Cox and Judge Bob Oliver. And Bob is not able to be with us, nor Sid today. 2018, I know Dick Johansson had planned to be here, but he's been battling some health issues. So Dick Johansson was the recipient, along with Phil Larson. And then 2019, one of Fresno's all-time great businessmen also, the great Dick Caglia. And right over here, Steve Dix. Stand up, Steve Dix, so these folks can see you. And last year, boy, a pretty good trio. Now Mayor Jerry Dyer, Denny Stubblefield from New York Life Insurance. Stand up, Denny Stubblefield. He worked there about 114 years. And another one of Fresno's all-time great businessmen, Richard Shahade of Producers Dairy. Stand up there, Richard Shahade. So today, we're going to honor three men. Dr. Eric Hanson, one of my great friends and one of the great orthopedics in the history of America, is not able to be here today because he just had another injury. So he's now a patient. And his wife, Darlene, sent us an email early this morning and said he's not a very good patient. He's a good doctor, but not a very good patient. So poor Eric is hurting, so we will honor him another time. But Eric Hanson from Sierra Pacific Orthopedic, if you're not familiar with them, and he has taken care of all the Fresno State athletes and the Fresno Grizzly athletes. Some of you may not know this. When ball players play for the Grizzlies, or when they became the Houston Astros or San Francisco Giants, those players would go to the big leagues. Many of them have come back to be treated by Eric Hanson. They say, this guy's better than the big league doctor. Fresno State, the Grizzlies, the San Francisco Giants, the Astros. If you didn't know it, Eric Hanson was born in Thailand. His parents were missionaries. So he and Darlene go to Thailand often. They've given a lot to the country of Thailand. And Eric Hanson is a great friend, and he's also my knee doctor. So give him a great big hand, even though he's not able to be here today. The second recipient, I'm going to tear up, is my long-time friend, John Horseman, who just went to heaven not too long back. And I had the privilege of working with John Horstmann, as did Denny Stubblefield with New York Life. He was only there 63 years. He started in 1958. John Horstmann was not just a good agent. He was one of the top agents in the entire nation of America with New York Life. In 2013, he won the great Leon S. Peters Award, one of the greatest awards anybody can receive. He also was a top dog recipient in 2007 from Fresno State. And we have his daughter, Kathy Hubert, his son, John Jr. Horseman. I want you both to come on up here and speak on behalf of your dad, John Horseman Sr.
Well, if Dad was here, I know what he would say. He'd look at me and say, you couldn't put on a tie and get a haircut?
That is what he would say.
What Dad would really say, though, is, why me? You know, there are other people in this community that are far more deserving. And I think that really, you know, speaks to him. That was my dad. You know, other people came first to him. And, you know, He wasn't boastful, about his Christianity. I mean, it was very much a part of who he was, but, frankly, he was almost pre-Christianity. He was more Samaritan, quite honestly, in how he dealt with others. In 1958, he found the perfect calling with New York Life, and there's a reason why, you see the insurance industry, represented in organizations like this, and it's because back then it was about helping widows and orphans. It wasn't about, the complex planning that we get into now. It was, just helping families in need. It was a perfect calling for him. It was a perfect match. And eventually he was able to take that and expand it into his love for Fresno and the community. And that was my dad. Just simply, it was about working for others, working for his friends, working for his clients, and working for Fresno.
John summed up Dad perfectly. I'll add to that. I was there sitting by Dad when he received the call. And Dad had a hard time tracking like he always used to do, and taking notes and all that became very difficult. But it wasn't difficult that day. Somehow he kept it all straight, and he wrote it down, and it's the perfect memory of something that meant so much to him. And he did the one thing that John said, why me? Why me? And he said, Kathy, do you think they called the wrong person? I said, no, Dad, I'm sure they didn't. It was such a perfect way for him to end the chapter of his life. And it couldn't have been a better moment. It couldn't have been a better time. And it wrapped up everything that he had done. And his first thing always was lead with integrity. There wasn't anything my dad would say or do that he didn't feel couldn't be said in public. And he got so many calls to help other people, and he never stopped. And even in his last moment, one of the last things he said to me after he said, I love you, is, I'm trying so hard. And I said, I know, Dad. And then he wanted to put his suit on to get back out there. And I want to thank you all so much. This is a treasure for our family. We haven't gotten to celebrate in public for my mom or my dad. We lost Mom 15 months ago. But this is a perfect celebration of his life. Thank you all so much.
So our last recipient, and this is another great pleasure because this young man and I went to high school together back in 1960 at Roosevelt High School. And we played football together. And Steve Magarian went on to become a reserve deputy sheriff in 1966, a deputy in 1968, was elected sheriff of our county in 1986, and again in 1990, and again in 1994. What a fabulous career that Steve had. And he's just finished up teaching 20 years, Steve, at criminology at Fresno State. He also, I just realized, was honored with the Top Dog Award the same time that John Horseman was in 2007. So Steve Magarian, come on up here, my good friend, and congratulations.
I'm honored to receive this award. It's a phenomenal award. I'm really touched by it, but I'm even more humbled about the men I'm included with today that I spoke about a minute ago. I was honored to serve as sheriff for 33 years with the organization, 12 years as sheriff of the county. God certainly had his hand in my life. I was talking to Gary earlier, who's now at the rescue mission, a fine young man I just met a few minutes ago when we got here. God had a plan for me. I wanted to fly commercial airplanes. I thought that would be the coolest thing I could do in my life. But God said, boy, you are stupid, Steve. I got other plans for you. So I'm serious. I mean, how it happened, it's too long of a story to share here. But just briefly, a grocery store, working in a grocery store, a bread driver, a person who delivers bread to our grocery store, said, I want to take you and introduce you to the sheriff. And I thought to myself, he just, patting himself on the back because he thinks he knows the sheriff. Big deal. And I let it go for several months. I'd forgotten about it. Then he comes in one day about 11 o'clock and says, can you go to lunch? And I said, sure. And so we went to lunch together, and we finished lunch downtown at a small little shop, and he said, we're going to stop by the sheriff's department and introduce you to the sheriff. I said, this guy's crazy. And we'd pull in front of the sheriff's office. In those days, there was no safety glass and all the safety things that we have to deal with today because of the world we live in. Took me upstairs, and he said, this is Sheriff Melvin Woolworth. He said, I want you to introduce you to Steve Magarian. And I'm standing there like this, and I about melted. And the sheriff stands up. He's bigger than life to me at that time. Shakes my hand and says, well, I understand you'd be a good reserve deputy sheriff. I said, well, I've never even thought about it, Sheriff. He says, raise your right hand. This happened within 2 minutes of being in his office. So I raised my right hand. He gives me this oath to be a reserve deputy. And I said, well, what's this entail? He said, well, you don't get paid. It's free, and you have to buy yourself a uniform. And here's where you go buy it. He said, do you have a gun? And I said, I have a .22 rifle. I don't have any handguns. He said, well, you need to go buy yourself a handgun. Any kind of, in those days, they didn't care what you bought. Buy a used .38 pistol, and you come to work. Came there. I didn't know how to wear the uniform, how to wear the gun belt. As a reserve, wasn't getting paid, was made fun of by a lot of other regular officers. But little by little, I gained their confidence. And here I'm in a grocery store. I'm making pretty good money. And these deputies are saying, you got to take the test. You got to take the test. I take the test. Before you know it, I become a full-fledged deputy in 1968. The rest of the story is history. I mean, I did not know, first of all, I'd become a deputy, not know that I would be rise through the ranks and be elected the sheriff of Fresno County, because God certainly was riding along on my shoulders. If it weren't for him, I wouldn't have made it. I hope that my goals of raising the professionalism of the organization and bonding with our community were successful. Because one thing that all chiefs and sheriffs know or should know, the number of officers on the street mean nothing. You could have 1,000 more officers on the street of Fresno, of any city in this country. But if you don't have community support, if you don't have the love of your community standing behind you, supporting you, you will fail. And that's a certainty, you will fail. And it's been proven throughout our country many, many times. We need the community support. All our community. All colors, all races, all creeds. All our community. Law enforcement, it's a very admirable profession. It requires a tremendous amount of sacrifices. Believe me, sacrifices that many don't even realize. Those that wear that badge every single day go out there not knowing if they're going to go home that night. And the only profession other than that I know of is our military. They don't know what's going to happen, as we just recently found out with our leaving Afghanistan, what happened to those soldiers trying to protect the airport. I was saddened in this last year with the pandemic hitting our world as it was for all of us to see all the turmoil in our country. Attacking law enforcement, burning police cars, burning buildings, people rioting. What a division. Instead of coming together in the pandemic, in this arena, we separated. That's right. And we did terrible things. Attacks on the Capitol. I mean, all these things that went on, or all that showed was division and not cohesiveness, which we need in our community. So I'm hoping and I'm praying today, and I hope you will pray also when you have time to pray and you pray about this, that we can bring our communities back together, and law enforcement and the communities together can bond and work together to make our communities safer places to live and raise our wonderful families. That's going to be a paramount. It's our safety and our love. We have to be one, not divided. A house that's divided will fail, and that's been proven over and over again.
Wow.
So again, I thank you. I'm overwhelmed by this award. I bless all of you for it. Tom, thank you. And I wish you all the very best. Thank you very much.